Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic AF.
I never took my 1 hour lunch break out. I always had my lunch at my desk, always worked through lunch, addressing anything that came up. Once I left the office 10 minutes early, I got ripped a new one.
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic AF.
I'ma call them Kim and Kanye because HIPAA. On the third floor of an assisted living facility lived Kim and Kanye. They've been married for years. Kanye only had one arm. Kim's condition had declined to the point where she was in a wheelchair, could barely get up by herself. Everyone knew Kanye was going senile, but no one thought anything of it. Kanye comes up to the nurse's station one night and says, "I got him." The nurses are like, "Fuck." Kanye says, "There is this man in my room, but I got him. Don't worry about it." The nurses rush upstairs only to find that Kim's chair is there, her wheelchair, but Kim's not in the room, which Kim can't get up by herself. The nurses decide to look out the window, and there's Kim lying on the ground, dead. The news want to report a story. The family says no. The family says, "Go ahead and bury her. We don't really give a shit." Our boss comes in and tells us if we ever speak of this or catch anyone talking about it, to report them. Everyone will be fired immediately and might be sued. That is a short version of how my job covered up a murder.
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic AF.
So the last job I worked at, we were like closed because of COVID, and a black man came up to the window because obviously he didn't know we were closed. So I went up to go and speak to him and be like, "Oh, sorry, we're closed." And my manager turned around and said, "No, we don't speak to," and then said the N-word. And you know when you just don't know what to say, you're just in disbelief. Anyway, I went up to him and said, "Sorry, we're closed." And then there was a whole conversation about how she didn't believe in Black Lives Matter and everything and all of that. And it was just very apparent that she was racist. And then she kind of got the hint that everyone in the workplace was calling her racist. And she was like, said to all of us, it was more the young people that were saying it. She was like, "I'm not racist, so don't call me racist. I'm not racist, I just don't really like them." Them being black people. So I left and now I do social media.
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic.
I was approved to take a 3-week vacation to go see my boyfriend in July, who I hadn't seen since January because of COVID. So 2 days into my trip, I get an email saying that I'm not going to be paid for 3 weeks of PTO, and I'm also going to have to take a 2-week unpaid quarantine. Mind you, my trip was approved and this was never discussed beforehand. So after arguing for 3 weeks, I decided to email the owner of the company and let her know that that wasn't cool. I also attached a copy of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This states that if you have to quarantine for any reason, you have to let them work from home for 2 weeks or pay them. So guess what? They had to let me work from home. But wait, the drama's not over. 2 days before I'm supposed to go back into work, I'm told I have to transfer stores and not given a reason. I meet up with my boss and she tells me I need to watch myself and that maybe next time I shouldn't email the owner of a company if I have a problem. So I interviewed, put my 2 weeks in, a week later, and guess what? They still had to pay me out my PTO when I quit.
When you realized that your workplace was toxic AF.
So I once did this runway show for one of the most famous American brands, and they lined up all the models against a wall to figure out what each of us was going to wear. And when they got to me, they just sort of stared at me in silence for a second before the head of PR says in front of my face and the entire room of people, "I have no idea what we're going to put this boy in. His body is disgusting." So obviously I start cracking up because I'm like, "Stop, they think I'm that skinny that I'm disgusting? Like, eh." And she goes, "It's not funny." And I was like, okay. So yeah, that sucked. The worst part about it is that they put me in the ugliest jumpsuit I'd ever seen in my entire life. It was massive on me. Honestly, I was absolutely swimming in it, so.
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic.
Okay, so not too long ago, I found out that a trans girl previously worked at my job. And she was in the middle of her transition, but the manager had a lot of issues with her working there. But of course, he couldn't be transphobic directly to her because he could get sued. Anyways, one time a female manager asked him to go send a guy to go help her with some like heavy boxes or something. And the trans girl just so happened to walk in the room as she was saying that. So of course the general manager, who is still the manager to this day by the way, thought it would be so funny to say in Spanish, "There goes your man." So she couldn't understand that they were making fun of her. Not only is it transphobic, but I take offense to it as well because those are my brothers and sisters right there, a part of our community, and so I want to get the fuck out of there.
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic.
So I worked for a company that required me to travel. I would leave my home at 5 a.m. I wouldn't come back until 11 p.m., shower, eat, and then do it all over again. Sometimes I would work 9 days straight without a break. And mind you, this company valued family outside of work. That if you need anything, then you could come to them. Well, I got a text saying that my stepbrother passed away. He said, "Hey, I gotta go. I'll come back and I'll pick up where I left off. I should only be gone just for today, and then I'll figure out when the funeral and everything is later. They're like, no, you can't leave. Like, you can't leave right now. And at my work in the lobby, they have like the news playing. My stepbrother was on the news, and I said, do you believe me now? They're like, well, you can't leave right now. And I said, well, I need to, and it's an emergency. I said, I've been here for the past 2-3 years, never asked for vacation, never asked for a day off. And now that it's an emergency, I can't do anything about it. So I threw my keys on the counter and never went back. After that, 2 GM, 4 district managers, 1 regional manager all got fired. Not because of me, though.
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic AF.
One of the males came out to me, flopped his dick out and pissed on my foot. The same guy put his hands up my dress and scratched my leg. There's a girl who always takes my food out of the fridge. She never asks me, she just grabs it. They scream from one end of the building to the other. One of them always yells out, come and wipe my ass. I mean, I'm a stay-at-home mum, but the conditions are pretty bad.
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic AF.
So I used to work for a really, really big tech company, not Apple, the other one. But we ain't gonna name it, you know, just in case. So at this company, you basically get recognized for the amount of sales that you bring in. And so for the whole year, I was either top 5 or top 10 in sales. And at the end of the year, the manager comes and talks to you about kind of like the compensation that they give you for your work and kind of acknowledging how great of a work you did. Well, at the end of my year, they gave me a 5-cent raise. So I was like, that seems very little. So I go around and ask all my coworkers, you know, you're not supposed to do this, but I do. I ask all my coworkers, I'm like, hey, like how much you get? And all the guys got $1+ raise, and I'm over here getting 5 cents. Are you fucking kidding me?
Tell me the moment when you realized that your workplace was toxic.
So we were having our monthly department meeting, and it was 25 of us. Everybody was white except for me, and 4 of my bosses were in the meeting. So tell me why one of my bosses says the N-word twice. I'm looking around the room. When I tell you no one's faces looked phased, it was like a normal Tuesday. So after the meeting, I decided to go to my other boss and tell her how uncomfortable I felt. She said that we should bring HR into it, and I agreed. So we finally have a meeting with HR, and the HR lady is gonna ask me, so what was the most uncomfortable for you? The fact that the N-word was said, or the fact that a white person said it? Baby, God is pulling out the tricks. I'm looking up at God like, not today. Bonus, people were telling me she was saying it a week prior, so she has a pattern of this.